adding and subtracting fractions. The important thing to know when we're doing addition and subtraction specifically is that it's the same thing when we're comparing fractions. If we want to add or subtract, we need to make sure we have the same denominator. They both are the same, so we can compare them, take away from them, add to them. So looking at this, we have 5 and 3. I'm going to start by writing out my multiples: 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. And for 3, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. There's my LCM. So we want both of these to say 15. So 5 times 3 will give me 15. So I'm going to multiply the top as well. And 3 times 5 will give me 15. So I'll multiply this 4 by 5. So looking at that, we have 9 times 3, which will give us 27 over 15, minus 4 times 5 is 20, 3 times 5 is 15. So now that they're the same, we can subtract them. And when we subtract, and adding, we're really just looking at our numerators. We can compare these. They're the same. We're done with our denominator. Then all we have left is subtract our numerators. So 27 minus 20. When we do that, we're left with 7. And we don't mess with our denominator anymore. It stays 15. What we can do, though, is we can make sure there's nothing we can do to reduce this. And looking at it, there's no way to reduce that. 7 does not go into 15 evenly. So our answer is 7 over 15. So let's look at another one. We have negative 13 over 7 plus 3 over 2. So multiples of 7, 7, 14, 21, 28, 2, 4, 6, 8. I'm going to keep going until I get a common multiple, which will be 14. So 7 times 2, 2 times 7. So multiply this side by 2, this side by 7. Pardon me. I'm going to erase this so I have more room. I'm going to keep this negative sign down here. It's not going to change. 7 times 2 is 14. And 13 times 2 is 26. Plus 3 times 7 is 21. 2 times 7 is 14. So now we need to think back about what we do when we're dealing with integers, so positive and negative numbers. So looking at this, which number is bigger? So 26 is bigger, so I know my answer is going to be negative. Now, since we're dealing with positive and negative numbers, we are dealing with the difference between those two. So we need to find what the difference is. Difference means subtraction. So we're not going to worry about that sign. We know it's going to be negative. So 26 minus 21, we're left with 5. And I'm going to keep my same denominator. So negative 5 over 14. So thinking about adding and subtracting fractions, the rules of addition and subtraction don't change. The only thing that changes is we have this denominator that we have to make sure is the same. But the rules of addition and subtraction still apply. Let's look at 2 more examples. We have 5/8 minus 1/7. Looking at these, I know the only way I'm going to get the same denominator is if I multiply by the opposite denominator. So this side is going to be times 7. This side is going to be times 8. And again, I just know that looking at these two, since they're only one number apart, I know that's the only way I'm going to get them to be even. So I have 8 times 7, which is 56. 5 times 7 is 35. Minus 1 times 8 is 8 over 56. So then all I'm left with is 35 minus 8. And that would give me 27 over 56. And looking at those numbers, the easiest way to do it, see if 2 goes into it, see if 3 goes into it. So 3 goes into this one, but 3 does not evenly go into this one. So 3 doesn't go into it. And because this is negative and this one's positive, I know 2 doesn't go into it as well. So 27 over 56, believe it or not, is the lowest reduction. We can't reduce that fraction anymore. So let's look at one more example. We have negative 4 over 5 minus 4 over 10. So I'm going to go ahead and move this up here so we don't forget about that minus sign. Look at these 5 and 10. I can write out my multiples. I know the common denominator is going to be 10. So I have negative 8 over 10 and negative 4 over 10. So because they're both negative, my answer is definitely going to be negative. And I know I'm going to keep the denominator. So we have negative 8 and 4 more negatives. So we have negatives and more negatives. We're going to be combining those. So 8 and 4 will give us 12. Looking at this, not only can we reduce this, but it's an improper fraction. 12 is bigger than 10. So I'm going to go ahead and actually convert this to a mixed number, just in case my answer is in a mixed number, and I want you guys to get the practice going between those. So 10 into 12, which will give me 1 with a remainder of 2. So our whole number is 1, remainder is 2 over 10, and I can't forget that it's negative. So looking at 2 and 10, I can reduce it even further. 2 goes into both of those. So then I'm left with negative 1. 2 goes into 2 one time. 2 goes into 10 5 times. So then I'm left with negative 1 and 1/5. So you go ahead and try this example on your own. Looking at 2 and 3, you should have gotten 6 as the common denominator. So multiplying this side by 3, this side by 2. So that'll give you 21 over 6 minus 16 over 6. When you subtract those two numbers, you should get 5 over 6. And we can't reduce that one anymore. So I hope that's what you got for your answer. So let's look at what happens if we're adding and subtracting mixed numbers. So if I have 2 and 1/5 plus 1 and 3/4. I think the easiest way to go about this is to go ahead and convert these into improper fractions. They're just a little easier to work with. So again, I'm multiplying, adding, multiplying, adding. So 5 times 2 is 10, plus 1 is 11. So we have 11 over 5, plus 4 times 1 is 4, plus 3 is 7, 7 over 4. Looking at these two numbers, the common denominator is going to be 20 on this one, because I know the LCM between 5 and 4 is going to be 20. So I'm going to multiply this side by 4, this side by 5. So we get 44 over 20 plus 35 over 20. So then I can go ahead and add those together, which will give me 79 over 20. And so let's practice taking that improper fraction and putting it back as a mixed number. So I can go ahead 79 divided by 20, that'll give me 3 with a remainder. So 20 times 3 is 60. I subtract those, it'll give me a remainder of 19. So this 3 is my whole number. Remainder is my numerator. Denominator stays the same. So we get 3 and 19/20. So let's go ahead and have you guys try this next example on your own. We had 4.5 plus 6 and a fifth. So starting out by making these improper fractions. So 2 times 4 is 8, plus 1 is 9/2, plus 5 times 6 is 30, plus 1, 31/5. As an LCM, you should have gotten 10 for these two numbers. So multiplying this side by 5 and this side by 2. So we have 9 times 5 is 45/10, plus 62/10. And then we can add those two together, and you should have gotten 107/10. So again, getting that practice going from improper to mixed, mixed to improper. Let's go ahead and divide these two. And you should have gotten 10, which will give you 100, a remainder of 7. So 10 becomes our whole number. The remainder is the numerator. Denominator stays the same. And we cannot reduce that one anymore. So go ahead and try this last example. Last one, you had to do a little bit with subtracting mixed numbers, converting them to improper fractions, working with integers. So this should have been a good question for you to get some of that practice, taking things from things we've done before and the things we've done in this lesson. So looking at this, automatically, I'm going to convert this to an improper fraction. So 3 times 3 is 9, plus 2 will give me 11/3. Don't forget that negative, so it's negative 11/3. In this one, we have 4 times 2 is 8, plus 1 is 9/4. And again, we have that negative right there, or that subtract sign. They mean the same thing. We just don't want to forget them. So you should have gotten an LCM of 12 for both of these. So multiplying this side by 4, this one by 3. So we should have gotten negative 44/12, and then minus 27/12. So looking at these two, we have a negative combining with another negative. I know my answer has to be negative. We have a negative and another negative, negative, more negative. We're going to combine them and add them together. So you should have taken 44 plus 27, which will give you 71/12. Convert it again. So we have 71 divided by 12. Should give you 5. Because 12 times 5 is 60, with a remainder of 11. So negative 5, because we don't want to forget that negative, and 11/12. So that should have been your answer. So in the next one, we're going to talk about multiplying and dividing.